And when we run that, you can see the line is quite different, but it follows the trend of your subcompact vehicles. Hello there. Today we're going to talk about geometric objects, or better known as geoms, within ggplot. As you follow along, if this is your first time checking out a video, we're going to be using the tidyverse. If you have not installed that yet, install tidyverse and then load it with the library function as such. So what is a geom? Well, a geom is a geometric object that a plot uses to represent data. Each geom in ggplot takes a certain argument to map your data on the plot. Not every aesthetic works with every geom. We'll touch on that in a moment. And for instance, you can change the shapes of points, but not lines. However, you can change the line type. Now, in a previous video, I've talked about how to make a line graph, but this will further expand and actually give greater detail and how that can work, and it improves upon that video. So we're going to be using Geom Smooth, which will draw a different line type for each unique value of the variable you are mapping. We will be using the MPG data set, which is already preloaded into R. So if you want to follow along, you don't have to worry about finding your own data. This is already existing within the system. So using ggplot, our data is MPG. We're going to make a point plot, and this is just going to show you the differences in geoms. The aesthetic being the X being engine displacement in liters, and the Y being the highway mileage. What we see down below is this scatter plot showing as the engine displacement in liters of your vehicle increases, the highway mileage decreases. In a previous video, we detail why that might be the case. So if you haven't, or you have curiosities about that, I would recommend checking it out. But it is not necessary to complete this tutorial. Now, what if we want to add a line instead of seeing the scatter plot? Well, we use geom smooth in place of geom point. The rest of this line is the same. And as we can see, we have a nice line graph that follows the trend of those points we just saw. It has the confidence interval within that as well. Okay, so we're just at the tip of the iceberg of geoms. But what if we want to break that down with different line types to, apply it to different facets of the data set? Maybe we want to see how these lines differentiate based on the drivetrain of your vehicles. So ggplot, our data is MPG. Geom smooth for a line graph. The aesthetics are X of engine displacement in liters, Y is highway mileage. Now we add one more function to this, which is line type equals DRV. And as you can see, it has a different line type per drivetrain. Four-wheel is a solid line, front wheel is a short dashed line, and rear wheel is a long dash with a short dash line. And now we're starting to see how powerful ggplot can be, but it gets more complex and excellent yet. So how is that the case? Well, we can add multiple geoms to the same plot, which is why this is a powerful tool and is commonly used as a package. But how do we do that? To add multiple geoms in the same plot, we need to add an additional line to our code. Not a line like the line graph, but an extra set of text. So let's do this as such. The only difference here is I've hit return. So don't be concerned if you want to do it straight across, you can, but I encourage you to hit return between each geom so as not to, create an excessively long single line of code. This allows you to break it down and it makes it a lot easier to read. Okay, ggplot data is MPG. We're going to add a scatter plot on top of the line graph. So geom point, the aesthetic, displacement in liters, our aesthetics remain the same for both. And we're going to color the points based on the drivetrain. Geom smooth is make sure you add that plus between them, otherwise you won't include it. Geom smooth does our line graph, same XY aesthetics. line type is the drivetrain, and we also want to color the drivetrain, um, which will automatically color them the same as it does for the points. So if we run this line, we can see we have the scatter plot of the respective data sets based on the drivetrain. Somewhat informative, maybe a little redundant, and it's a nice plot, but point data and line data of the same origin does not make the most impactful plot. So let's add colors to our points by class of vehicle instead. Okay, same rough usage, ggplot. Our data is the same. We're going to set our aesthetics up top. X is displacement in liters. Y is highway mileage. And why am I placing these here rather than down below? Well, having the X, Y variables up here makes it uniform across our geoms, saves us typing time. So that way I don't have to indicate it in every single subsequent line. Okay, we want to have a scatter plot. We want to color by class of vehicle. And then we want to have the line graph included as well. And as you can see here, this is the same line graph that we did at the start of this video. And we have a scatter plot reflecting the class of vehicle over top of it. This is a lot more informative, but we can be more informative yet. Because what if we only want to reflect a subset of your data with the line? Here's how you'll do that. We're going to be using a filter function, which we'll touch on filtering in additional videos in the future. So don't worry about this too much. Just follow along. So ggplot, our data is the same. Our aesthetics are the same. We have the same geom point aesthetics, except now under geom smooth, your data is filtered. So once again, though, we have to indicate we're using the MPG data. Class, two equal signs now. Without two equal signs, this will not work. Class is only reflecting subcompact. And then the standard error, we want to remove the standard error, so the shaded area, we're making that false. And when we run that, you can see the line is quite different, but it follows the trend of your subcompact vehicles from high mileage to low mileage. See this curvature? This is very informative of this specific data set. In theory, you could add more lines to reflect each class, maybe only a couple, but that would make it quite a busy graph. This is where I'm going to stop today with this geom exercise. I would say go back over it, give it a try. Maybe now you can add this to your tool belt for when you run it on your own data.